Hey guys, welcome to your next project. This is going to be a pretty simple project, but a pretty useful app. We're going to use the OMDB API, which is the Open Movie Database, and this is a free web service to obtain movie information. It gets the movie image, the title, the runtime, the release date, a whole bunch of stuff. And if we go down here, the usage is pretty simple. We just need to make a request to omdbapi.com, and we can add certain parameters. Okay, so we can search by IMDb ID, we can search by title, we can search by the years, and then down here we can search by queries. Okay, which is what we're going to do with this input. Okay, so let's go ahead and try it out. So I have this search for a movie field here, very simple interface, and let's search for the movie Scarface. Enter, and we get all the matches. If we click on one, and it's by relevance, and then we get the title, the image, and then we have a bunch of data down here output in a list view. Okay, so this is a simple project, but again, it's really helpful, and it's something that you could actually use. And of course, you could wrap this in a PhoneGap wrapper or Cordova, and you could make this into an actual hybrid application. Alright, so that's what we'll be building, and I'll see you in the next video. Alright guys, we're going to get started on our movies application. So I'm going to create a new folder, and we're going to call this MMDB. Okay, and then inside here, actually let's grab our boilerplate that we created and copy that, paste that right in there. Whoops. Okay, so I'm going to run this with our live server. So I'm going to just git bash or open your command line in the MMDB folder, and then from here we're just going to run live server, and that's going to start that up. Alright, so now let's go to Atom, and I'm just going to close this out. Let's see, remove, and then we're going to add project folder, and we want MMDB. Okay, we'll open up the index file. So I'm going to just change the title here to MMDB, and let's get rid of the H1. Now, in the last project, most of our work, actually all of our work, was within the markup. We just used some certain data roles and certain classes that allowed us to use jQuery mobile. In this project, most of our work is going to be in the JavaScript. We're going to have one simple index.html and then another movie.html, which will be the actual movie details page. Aside from that, everything will be in the JavaScript. So let's create our initial page here. We'll put in a div with a data role of page, and let's give it an ID of home. Okay, then we're going to do data role header. And let's put an H1 in here, and we'll just say movie listings. And let's see, I think, yeah, that's it for the header. And then let's put data role equals main. Okay, and then here we're going to have a search form so we can search for a movie using the API. So let's put a form, and I'm going to give it an ID of search form. That way we can grab onto it from the JavaScript. And then we'll put a div with the class of UI-field-contain. And then in here, let's put an input, give it a type of text, give it a name of search text, and let's give it an ID of search text. And let's give it a placeholder, and we'll just say search for a movie. Okay, there's our form. That's all we need, is that one single input. And then the movies are going to get generated through JavaScript, and then we're going to insert them into an element. Okay, so that element is going to be a UL, and we're going to give this an ID of movies. We're also going to give it a data role of list view. Let's see, is it list? Yeah, list view. We're not going to put anything in here because that's going to get generated through JavaScript. Alright, so now we want to go outside of the main and just create a simple footer. Keep doing W. So data role footer. And in here we'll just put a paragraph. And let's say MMDB copy 2017. Okay, and let's see, let's also give this a style of center. Save that, and there's our home page. Now I want to change the look of this up a little bit, so we can actually use, let's see, we can use a theme attribute. For instance, on the header, we can say data dash theme equals, and we can do A. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, it gives us the same thing. Let's use B, and that will make it dark. And I think there's a C as well. Let me try that. Yeah, so C is like that with the outline. I'm going to go with B, and then let's also add it for the footer. So we'll say data dash theme equals B. There we go. So that's going to be it for now. That's the complete UI for the home page. We do still have to create a movie.html, but that'll be later on. In the next video, we're going to fetch the movies from the API and make it so that we can search and have them display down here in a list. Okay, so that's what we'll do next. Alright guys, in the last video we created our index.html UI, which is just basically a search form. So now what we want to do is give function to that form, and we want to make it so that when we submit it, it's going to fetch movies from the OMDB database, okay, or OMDB API. So let's go to the JS folder and create a new file, and we're going to call this main.js. Okay, this is where we're going to put all of our JavaScript. And we're going to include this in the index.html down at the bottom. So let's say script source. That's going to be js/main.js. Okay, we'll save that. Just to make sure this is working, let's just do an alert 1. And you see we get that alert. Okay, now we're using jQuery as well, so we want to do a document.ready. Okay, we want to make sure that the document's ready before we do our functionality. So we're going to put a function there. So we want to create an event for when this form is submitted. So what I'm going to do here is use jQuery, and we're going to take body, and we want to do a .on submit, and we're using a delegation here. So the second parameter is going to be the actual form div, which has an ID of search form, and then we'll have our function. Okay, and since this is a submit, we need to prevent the default behavior, so we're going to pass along the event, and we're going to say e.prevent default. Alright, and then we want to get the value of whatever we put in here. Remember, this input has an ID of search text. So what we'll do is create a variable called search text and set it to jQuery and search text. Alright, and I just want to test this out, so let's just do an alert of that value. Okay, so if we go and we do test and enter, Okay, it gives us an object. That's because we need to get search text.val. Okay, so now if we say test and enter, we get test. Okay, good. So now we know that that's working. We can get rid of that. And we're going to call a function called getMovies and pass along the search text. Alright, so down here we'll create getMovies. We'll say getMovies from OMDB API. So function getMovies, and that's going to take in search text. And what we're going to do here is make an Ajax call. So we're going to use the Ajax method. And in here we're going to pass in some curly braces. And the method that we're using is going to be get. And we want to specify the URL of the API. And that's going to be http www.omdbapi.com, and we want an s parameter, so s equals, and then we want to concatenate the search text. Okay, and if we go to the API, we have some usage down here, and what we're doing is by search, so we included the s parameter, which is required. Okay, you can also include the types that you want to return if you want movie or series or episode, but we're just going to leave that. And then you can go by the year, data type, things like that, but we're going to keep it simple and just fetch all the movies that match that search. Alright, now we're going to have to do right here .done. And let's pass in here a callback, and that's going to take in data, and then let's do console.log data. Alright, so if I search for a movie here, let's say we want to search for the movie Scarface, and let's look at the console that returned this object, and we see this search array right here. If we open that up, we have all the different results for Scarface, and that includes the poster or the image, the title, the type, the year, and the IMDb ID. Okay, later on we're going to use this to navigate to the details page, or not navigate, but populate the details page. So what I'm going to do is put that search array that we get back into a variable. So let's say let movies equals data dot search. Okay, so now that all those results are going to be in this variable, and then we're going to create a variable for our output. So let's say let output, and we're just going to set that equal to nothing for now. And then what we want to do is loop through the movies, and then for each movie we're going to append to this output variable, and then after we've gone through them all, we're going to output them onto the screen as a list view. So what we need to do is a loop. I'm going to use a jQuery each loop. So we can just pass in the array, which is movies, and then a function. Alright, and then this function will put index, and then each result will be called movie. Okay, and then we just want to take that output variable and do a plus equals, which is an append, and I'm going to use backticks here so that we can use a template string, so we don't have to keep concatenating between lines. Okay, and then in here we'll just put an li, and let's do an a tag. Just set that to hash for now. And then in here let's put an image source, and remember we can get it from poster. So in here we're going to put a variable, which when you're using template strings you can use a money sign and then curly braces. And let's do movie.poster. Okay, that'll give us the image. Then we want an h2, and this is going to have the title. So we'll put money sign, curly braces, and then movie dot title. Okay, I'm also going to put the release year in a paragraph. And this is in movie.year. Alright, and this API returns their elements with a capital, so make sure you do that. Alright, so once we do the loop, so that each loop ends right here, then we're going to take, using jQuery, the ID of movies, and then say .html, and we want to insert our output. Okay, so let's try that. And again, if we search for Scarface, enter, you'll see we get all of our items, but they're not formatted correctly. And that's because the list view has to be refreshed since we generated it dynamically. So all we have to do is on the end of this is say dot list view and then refresh. So now let's save it and try it again. And there we go. So now everything's formatted correctly. Now some of them don't have images, that's why they don't show up here. Okay, but the newer movies should. Alright, so in the next video we're going to work on the movie details page. We want to be able to click on this and have it take us to a page that has more information. Okay, so we're going to have to make another request. Alright guys, in the last video we made it so that we could search for a movie and we'll get all these search results here. Now I want to be able to click on one of these and have it open a details page. So let's start by adding a click function to these movies. So if we go to our output here, I'm just going to add right here on click, and we're going to set that to a function called movie clicked, and we're going to pass along the movie dot IMDb ID. Okay, so it actually has an ID field that matches the IMDb ID. Okay, and notice that I had to put this in quotes. If I don't, it's going to look at that ID as a variable. Okay, so we have to do that. So we'll save that, and then let's create the movie clicked function. So I'm going to put that up here. So we'll say function movie clicked. Okay, and that's going to take in an ID. And then we'll say single, let's put a comment, single movie selected. Alright, and then let's just test this by doing a console.log of the ID. Okay, so we'll save that. And if I click on that, you see the ID down here. Okay, that movie has a different ID, that one has a different one, and so on. So what we want to do is we want to somehow store this ID so that we know the current movie we're looking at. So we're going to use session storage for that. And session storage is really easy. All we have to do is say session storage dot set item, and we're going to set this as the movie ID, and then we just want to put in the ID. Okay, that'll store it as a string. Now once we store it, we want to get redirected, or we want to change the page to the movie page, which we haven't created yet, but we will. And we can do that by using $.mobile, and then we can say .change page, and that'll change it dynamically. And we're going to go to movie.html. Alright, so let's save that and let's create movie.html. And I'm just going to copy what we have in index.html and paste that in. And let's change the ID to movie. And let's see what else. I want to have a back button. So right under the H1, we're going to put an A tag, and that's going to go to index.html. And let's also give it a class of UI button or UI BTN. and that's just going to say back. Alright, and then down here in the main, we're going to clear all this stuff out. And we're going to generate two parts of this. One's going to be the image and the title. The rest will be the list view with all the data. So I'm going to put two divs in here that are basically placeholders. So this one's going to be movie top, which is a div. Then I'm going to put a couple line breaks. And then we're going to have the UL with the ID of movie details. Alright, and then that's going to have a data role of list view. Okay, and that should be it. Let's save it. And now when we search for a movie and click on it, it brings us to the movie.html. Now we also have in session storage the actual ID. So if we look down here in application and go to session storage, you'll see right here movie ID, and we have that value. So we can now access that value, and what we want to do is create a new function called getMovie that will fetch that single movie and fetch those details. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do that in the next video. Alright guys, so what we need to do now is when we get this session, when we store this session item, which is the ID, and then we're calling change page to go to movie HTML, there's actually a step in between there that we need to hook into and call the getMovie function that we're going to create. So we can do that by using an event called page before show. So right here we're going to take the document and we're going to say dot on, just like any other event, and we're going to do page, oops, and let's do page before show. Alright, so this is also going to take in the page that we're talking about, which is going to be the movie page. So we can actually say ID movie, and then we can call our function. Okay, so in here, let's say let movie ID, and we're going to grab it from the session storage with get item. And in there, we're going to say movie ID. And then we're going to call a function called getMovie and pass along the movie ID. Alright, so let's just put a comment here and we'll say before movie details page. Alright, and then we're going to go down here at the bottom and create function getMovie. And this is to get single movie. Okay, that's going to take an ID. Oops, movie ID. And let's just test it up to this point by just doing an alert of the ID. So in order for this to work, it has to switch to the page, the movie's movie.html, and then it also needs to call this function, and it'll give us an alert. Alright. So let's go ahead and click on that. We get the alert with the ID, and then it goes to the movie page, and we can go back. Alright, so now this getMovie function has to make another call to get the single movie data and then output it onto the movie.html. Alright, so what we're going to do is do another Ajax call. I'm just going to copy this one. Let's see, that ends right here. I'm just going to grab this whole thing actually, and we'll paste that in, and let's get rid of everything that's in the done, and we're going to change this right here, change this to a T, and then it's going to be the movie ID. Alright, and then let's console log the data. Save that. And now if we look in the console, we have an object, movie not found. Okay. Let's see, did I do that right? Movie ID. Let's take a look at the API doc. Alright, so here's the issue. We use T, which is the movie title, but it should be I because we're looking up the ID. So let's just change that T to an I, and then we'll save that, and now you can see we're getting all the data. Alright, so now what we want to do is create a variable and then add the markup to it and then output it onto the screen. So we'll get rid of the console log and let's say let movie top equals, and we're going to use a template string, so be sure to use backticks. And then let's put a div, and I want it aligned center, so we're going to use a style and say text align to center. And then in here let's put an H1, and this is going to be the title. So movie, actually yeah, let's change data to movie, that makes more sense. Dot title. And then the image is going to have a source of movie dot poster. And that's all we're doing for the top. So now we want to insert that into our HTML. So we're going to grab the element with the ID of movie top and say .html and pass along the movie top variable. Alright, now to do the details, which are in a list view. So we want to create a variable here called movie details and set that to a template string. And let's see, this is going to be quite a bit of stuff, so what I'm going to do is just copy it and paste it in. Okay, so we have a bunch of LI tags. We have the genre, the rating, released, the year released or date released, the runtime, the IMDb rating, the IMDb votes, the actors, and the director. So it's going to output all that stuff in a list. Okay, and then we just need to output it. So again, we're going to use jQuery, and we're going to grab the element that has the ID of movie details and then say .html and pass along movie details. And since this is a list view, we need to refresh it just like we did on the index page or on the home page. So we're going to say .list view and then pass in refresh. Alright, so that looks good. Let's save it. And there it is. We have the image, the title, and then we have a list view with all the different fields. Alright, and we can search for anything. Even if we put in the letter A, we'll get a bunch of stuff, and we can get all those movies details as well. Alright, so hopefully you enjoyed this project, and this is a really nice API to work with. It's nice and simple. There's no authentication, and it has recent movies, so I definitely suggest using it and experimenting with it. Alright, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.